once again, and welcome to today's CCT session. My name is Mariana Kurik, and I'm a specialty training coordinator and in the education department at the faculty. And joining us today, we also have Jessica Lichtenstein, CEO of UK PHR. This session will last approximately an hour. And as I said before, it is aimed to to those registrars who are due to CCT within next 3 months, because they will be using the paper-based process. And then we are expecting the process to move within next couple of months to e-portfolio. And then Garrett and I will hold further sessions later in the year to go through that process. In today's session, in the first half of the session, Jessica will talk to you about UK PHR registration and strengthening their engagement with registrars. And then you will have enough time, sufficient time to ask Jessica any questions you might have in relation to that. And then after that, in the second half of the session, I will talk to you about the CCT process and its requirements. And again, there will be sufficient time, to go through any questions that you might have after that. If I don't manage to answer them all today, don't worry, I will find them later in the chat and I can respond to them, or you're more than welcome to email me and then I will answer whatever I can. So over to you, Jessica, now.
Great, thank you so much. Just out of interest, how many of you are planning to register with UKPHR? Just put your hand up if so. Okay, so 3 of you. Even those who aren't, I should say, those who will register, who are GMC registered, I should note that it is still pretty important that you understand who we are and what we do, because probably about 50% of your colleagues will be UKPHR registrants. You may eventually become their appraisers, or, educational supervisors for those who will eventually register with UKPHR. So we feel that it's still pretty essential that you understand who we are and what we do. And I'm sure you already do, but I'll just reiterate a lot of this. So I'm going to share my screen. Just have a few slides I'll talk through and then some time for questions. Right. So as I said, I'm Jessica Lichtenstein. I'm the Chief Exec of UKPHR. Just a few things that we'll talk about today. I should note, we're a tiny organization. It's interesting because I think, we try to deliver similar things to our registrants as the GMC does to their registrants, but of course it's going to be pretty impossible. There's only 6 of us who work at the UKPHR. We are quite small. We try to do what the GMC does to make your experience as public health specialists as equivalent as possible. But of course, there's always limitations to what we can do. I'll start off just to give you a little bit of an idea of what is keeping us busy at the moment. We're continuously working to maintain, develop, and grow our register. That's our business as usual. So we have registration services that will support you through your registration process, revalidation, and beyond. We're also working to ensure that the multidisciplinary public health force, so those without medical degrees, that they are supported and enabled to maintain professional standards. So a lot of this is continuous engagement with public health employers, a lot of joint working with the Faculty of Public Health, and trying to understand and hear from our registrants as much as possible. And then, of course, there's a collaboration across public health and regulatory sectors. So at the end of the day, we are a regulator. Technically, we're an accredited register with the Professional Standards Authority for Health and Social Care. So that establishes us as a regulator and kind of gives us status in the health sector. So as I said earlier, we work very much like you would expect a regulator to work. But we're doing a lot of work with other healthcare regulators at the moment, really to ensure that we exercise best practice, that we understand trends in regulation and that kind of thing. And as I said, there's only 6 of us, so we do try to support them as best as we can. We have finally implemented some online systems. Before we were working with some very archaic stuff. So we're modernizing. And that's really our journey over the next couple of years. So again, I'm sure most of you know this, but just to remind you, we have 3 categories of registration. So public health practitioner registration. As you may know, practitioners are registered with us, but it is not always a requirement for practitioner job roles. We are working with employers to try to promote that. And there are a lot of public health practitioner roles that do require or registration, or it's a desirable criteria on job roles. So that is something we're working to promote and expand, and the size of our practitioner register goes up every year. Then, of course, there's the public health specialists, which are kind of our bread and butter. They've been registered with us for the longest. And we do have specialty registrar registration. Again, this is not a requirement, but we do we do encourage registrars to engage with us at as early a point as possible. I think it's a unique situation for public health specialty registrars who are not doctors, because those who are have to engage with the GMC from the moment they graduate medical school. And what's expected of them as part of a regulated profession is kind of ingrained with them from day one. And I think a lot of future UKPHR registrants will, go about their training and their work without giving regulation or registration much thought. And then sometimes it can come as a little bit of a surprise at the point of registration. So we do like to engage with people as early as possible. Just some stats here in terms of numbers. So this is now about a month out of date. So those who have CCT'd very, very recently won't yet be reflected on here. And as I said earlier, our public health practitioner register does grow every year. So we still have more specialists on the register, but we are looking at in the next year or two the balance shifting, which would be quite an interesting milestone for us. So routes onto the specialist register, again, the standard route, training route via CCT. There are a few quite enthusiastic regulation nerds, I suppose, who are registered with both us and the GMC or the GDC. You don't have to be. Some people choose to be. And there is also, of course, a retrospective portfolio route. And I should also note that doctors have exactly the same process, very similar in its ins and outs, but the outcome is the same, which is specialist registration. So this is looking at people who have a variety of experiences in job roles and education, and they put that all together to demonstrate that they meet the same exact competencies that you as trainees meet. And if they're successful, then they gain specialist registration and have exactly the same access to public health roles as you do, or as you will. So once you become a specialist registrant, probably not much of a surprise, I hope. You'll be asked to renew annually. Every 5 years, there's a little bit more of an in-depth review of your registration status. And again, this is very much aligned to GMC revalidation. It's based on annual appraisal and fitness to practice declarations. And we try to ensure they're as aligned as possible to so that employers aren't overburdened with all of the admin that's involved in employing a regulated profession. We do have a fitness to practice process in place where concerns are raised, and I'm happy to say that we don't exercise this very often, but we do engage regularly with employers, and they will report things to us if they think that somebody is in serious breach of fitness practice. But as I said, it's extremely unusual for that to happen. We're very happy for issues to be dealt with locally first before they get escalated to anything at our level. At the moment, if you're an educational supervisor, you can self-declare so that we can list your status on our register, same as GMC, although I understand that the GMC is now reviewing approval of educational supervisors. So we'll watch that very closely so that we can continue to align. Now, all of these processes are based on a document that I hope you are very familiar with, Good Public Health Practice. So this is something that's developed by the Faculty of Public Health, and we have brought this on as our key standards. So we used to have a little bit of a confusing set of documents for UKPHR registrants, a UKPHR Code of Conduct alongside the older version of Good Public Health Practice. We've streamlined and simplified. Now, we consider this document only to be the standards that we expect of all of our registrants, no matter specialists, practitioner, registrars, and there's a user guide that we publish, which goes into a little bit more detail about our expectations of our registrants in the context of good public health practice. So a few points about revalidation, because this is something that everybody will need to engage with soon. Well, not too soon, 5 years from your CCT date. So it's a little bit different from GMC registrants in that the clock starts from the date of registration, which for our registrants is post CCT. So you won't have to revalidate for 5 years after you register with us. It is based on annual appraisals, which are organized through employers. Of course, the systems will differ depending on where you're based, and it is similar requirements to GMC registration. We don't have a responsible officer set up in the same way. So revalidation evidence is submitted directly to us, which is slightly different from what GMC registrants do, which is through their employers and through their responsible officer. So the appraisal, as I said, is the key thing for revalidation. And our appraisal requirements, again, align with the GMCs. So it includes discussion and confirmation of a personal development plan, continuing professional development. And again, it's according to the Faculty of Public Health requirements, which you're probably already familiar with. Indemnity arrangements, and if you're employed, that's normally through them. Colleague feedback, and optional for UKPHR registrants is quality assurance and audit activity. So again, we've never required that, but most employers will ensure that both GMC and UKPHR registrants are doing the same thing. So we're very happy to accept that as evidence as well. So in terms of just what you need to submit, we tried to make it as easy as possible. It's all through our online system. There's a self-declaration that your appraisals covered all required areas. We don't require copies of your appraisals. That's personal documentation, although there is a summary form that we ask for. We ask for a reference to ensure that you continue to meet the appropriate standards, and a declaration that you continue to be fit to practice and meet the standards. So, right, so on to kind of the next bit, which is how you can engage and how you can give back to the public health community. One big thing that a lot of trainees are involved in, and many people continue to do it as they get their CCT, is work with their local practitioner schemes. We always need assessors and verifiers. Verifiers provide quality assurance of the portfolios that practitioners are submitting. It is a volunteer role, but we do hear that it's really very fulfilling, and that it really does contribute to a strong public health community, as well as gives you some things to talk about in terms of your own CPD and appraisal. But I think it is a really, really useful activity. And I think kind of understanding how portfolios work, understanding how individuals are fulfilling public health competencies, because they can be fulfilled in so many different ways, is really, really fascinating. I'll make sure that Mariana has a copy of this presentation so you can engage with the links. I mentioned specialty registrar registration with the UKPHR. It is a little bit late in the game, probably, for all of you, but it is something that we encourage, because it does mean that trainees are accountable to an accredited regulatory body and are bound to agreed professional standards. In conversations with the faculty and with the postgraduate deans, they're all really, really supportive of this, and we're talking about how we can promote it further. And then you can engage as a specialist once you've got a few years of consultant experience under your belt. So we're always looking for good assessors for the portfolio route application. So again, these are people who've not had the traditional CCT training, but maybe working at the level of a consultant. And again, a really, really rewarding activity. It gives you something to talk about in appraisal and CPD. It is also a volunteer role. But again, we always have a lot of people doing assessments for us and they keep coming back. So clearly they feel that it is a rewarding experience. I'm sure you'll all be engaging with some level of education when you become a consultant. When you are an educational supervisor, if you become an educational supervisor, your status will be recognized in your registration. And at that point, you're asked to engage with the GMC trainer survey as well. So that's not just for doctors, as you know. Um, and of course, help us, help lead us. We're always looking for people to contribute in any way possible. We have a number of registered board members. Where actually a few of them will be leaving in the next year or two. We're always looking for people who are enthusiastic about UKPHR and enthusiastic about multi-professional public health. And contact us. We're very happy to hear thoughts, feedback at any point in time, and happy to take questions. Stop sharing my screen. All right, Lucy.
I just wondered, is there a period of time you have to come to be a consultant before becoming an educational supervisor, or can you do it relatively soon after CCT?
Not sure. Mariana, do you know the answer to that one?
I'm not sure either, Jessica. So what the period would be. I can inquire about that definitely
Yeah,
with the academic registrar. So, but yeah, I'm not sure what the period would be.
Annie.
It's not a question, but it's just in response to Lucy's. I think it is actually straight away that you can become
is
an
it?
educational
Okay.
supervisor.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Nope. Hopefully all fairly straightforward. Victoria.
Sorry, couldn't hit the button quick enough. Thank you. I guess I was just wondering in terms of the process to kind of make sure that as soon as we CCT, we kind of get the registration. Is there a kind of automated or formal process, or is it just a matter of us contacting you? How does that bit work?
Yeah, I think Mariana, you share with us a list of CCTs, don't you? And then
That is correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what happens normally once we make a recommendation to UKPHR, we also send you a confirmation letter advising you that the recommendation has been made, and then you have 3 months of the date of that CCT letter to apply. We will include a link and we will let you know so how you can apply, and then you have to apply directly to UKPHR to get included onto specialist register.
Yeah,
So
it's a pretty straightforward process because we'll have had the confirmation of your status from the faculty.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, great. I guess Mariana, I hand over to you now, don't I? And
Yes.
I don't stay for this bit, I don't think. So
No.
It was really lovely to meet all of you, and we look forward to hearing from a few of you in the near future.
Lovely to see you, Jessica.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye. Okay, so let's move on to CCT, the actual CCT process and its requirements. So let me just share my screen as well. Okay. Just trying to put it. Can you all see it okay?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. So basically the CCT process, it all starts, the faculty makes a recommendation for the award of the CCT to one of the regulators, either the GMC or the UKPHR. When the CCT paperwork has been received and reviewed, and we confirm that all CCT criteria have been met. The CCT paperwork consists of all your ARCP forms, including the final assessment form, which is the Outcome 6 form, and the completion of your training form, or how we call it, CCT form. And I will talk about CCT paperwork later in this presentation. So registrars for medical background are recommended to, upon successful completion of their training, they're recommended to GMC for inclusion onto a GMC specialist register, and registrars from background other than medical are recommended for inclusion onto UK public health specialist register. So the process is almost the same for registrars from medical background as well as those from other background other than medical, apart from varying at the very beginning of the process, where we for registrars from medical background, we are required to submit an advance notification to the GMC of someone's CCT date. And normally that happens 3 to 4 months prior to someone's CCT date. Then what happens is that the GMC, once they receive the advance notification, they will contact the registrar and invite them to apply for their CCT via their GMC online account. So what I always recommend to registrars is that when you know your final CCT date, then please do let us know. Just drop me a line and let me know so that we can update our records accordingly. We do get updated by all training programs regularly, but CCT dates, as you know, they all change throughout the year. So once you know the final CCT date, just drop me a line and so that I can notify the GMC. The GMC will then invite you to apply for your CCT, and I do recommend apply as soon as you can, because the GMC will then store your application in their system until they receive the actual recommendation from the faculty, and then then you get included onto specialist register once they receive the recommendation from the faculty. For registrars from background other than medical, they get recommended to UKPHR, and in the entire process, the UKPHR does not require that advance notification. But still, I would recommend, let us know when your CCT date is so that we can keep our records up to date. So one thing to bear in mind is that inclusion on specialist register is a statutory requirement for appointments to a consultant post, and whether that is a locum or a substantive consultant post, you actually have to be on the specialist register before you can start your consultant post. And that's something to bear in mind when you are being interviewed and you are agreeing the start date of your new post, if you are offered a job, so that you actually have to be, is not your actual CCT date, but is the date when you are included onto specialist register. You can apply for jobs and attend interviews when you are within 6 months of your CCT, but you can't take up the position until you actually have CCT'd and until you have been entered onto a relevant specialist register. People very often ask us how long it takes for the entire CCT process to finish and to make for us to make a recommendation to the regulator. And we do emphasize that it can take up to 4 weeks to approve the CCT application from the date from when we receive all your paperwork. We do, however, aim to do it sooner and as soon as possible. But this is also, it's stated on the actual CCT form, is stated on our website. So please do send us all your CCT paperwork as soon as is all available. It can be your training program who send it to us, but also if you have everything ready, do not wait for your training program to send it to us. You're more than welcome to send it directly to me. And then what happens is that, I will review your CCT paperwork, make sure, there are no discrepancies, make sure that I clarify anything that needs to be clarified. ensure that you I confirm that you met all CCT criteria, and then it goes on to the faculty director of training for final approval. And once that has been approved by the faculty director of training, then the recommendation is sent to the GMC or the UK PHR, whichever regulator is relevant to you. Final ARCP cannot be held more than 3 months prior to CCT. So that's another thing to bear in mind. But most regions, they know that because that's set out also in the Gold Guide. And, they all know that the final ARCP, can be held up to 3 months prior to CCT date. And as I said before, on approval of your CCT, we will make a recommendation to GMC or UK PHR, and then you will need to apply directly to the register to get included and pay all the relevant fees to the GMC or the UK PHR. Before we can make a recommendation to the regulator, we have to confirm that you have met all CCT criteria that we have agreed with the regulators. And those CCT criteria are as follows. That's the satisfactory completion of all supervised training in posts approved by the GMC. And the way we confirm that is, through your CCT paperwork, which is your CCT form and your ARCP forms, and also confirming that you have passed both exams, diploma and membership exam. You don't have to worry about proving to us about passing the exams, because we would already have that on our systems, and we will have the dates as well when you passed both exams. The other requirement is that is the membership of the faculty, that you are actually a full member of the faculty. You have been admitted to membership of the faculty and are in good standing, and that means that you are up to date with all your membership subscription fees. You will only be required to pay a CCT fee to the faculty and the membership fee if you joined training scheme prior to summer 2016, when the structure of the fees have changed, and you decided not to take up the membership, or you have allowed your membership to lapse. What I would suggest is that as you are approaching your CCT and you know your final CCT date, then I would recommend just emailing my colleagues in our membership department and let them know that you are about to CCT and you would just like to confirm that you are a full member in good standing, and then they will be able to tell you, if there are any outstanding fees that you need to pay. Because what we want to avoid is that even if your CCT paperwork and everything, your CCT application has been approved, and that requirement, the full membership, has not been met, we can't make the recommendation to the regulator. So I would recommend try and do it as soon as you know your final CCT date. And the other two requirements are for registrars who are from medical background, is that you have completed foundation year and foundation year 1 and 2 program or equivalent. Again, you don't have to worry about that, because we would have already confirmed that at the time of your enrollment with the faculty. And the same goes for registrars from background other than medical, and they would have to have 60 months of whole-time equivalent work experience, of which at least 24 months needs to be in public health or relevant to public health at the band 6 of the Agenda for Change. So the CCT paperwork, I mentioned earlier that the CCT paperwork consists of all ARCP forms that cover the entire duration of your training, including your final assessment form, which is the outcome 6, and the CCT form, which must be signed by your training program director, or if your training program director is not available for whichever reason, then it can be signed by the head of school. The completion of training form, I've put the link here in the presentation to completion of training form, but it can be downloaded from the faculty website. It's under training downloads or also on completion of training section of our website. We do ask you to review your CCT paperwork for accuracy before you submit it to us, just to ensure that all requirements are met and that all information that is provided on the CCT form also matches the information on previous ARCP forms. As I mentioned earlier, it can take up to 4 weeks for us to, process all the paperwork, and that really depends on the accuracy of a paperwork. So do send it to us as soon as available to allow us sufficient time for processing that paperwork. When I say it does depend on the accuracy, is that I've been in this job for 20 years and I've seen a lot of discrepancies and missing information in ARCP forms. And that can sometimes delay the process because we have to go back and forth and clarify things with the training program. So what I would again suggest to you as you're coming to your final ARCP, or well, prior to that, try and check all your previous ARCP forms and make sure that there are no missing information there, that everything matches, but because that can sometimes delay the process. The CCT form, the information that this is the actual CCT form that is still is a paper form, and this is the form as it looks like on the website. It also you should also make sure that you outline all the information there. I will come now to the key sections that you need to complete on the CCT form. The CCT form on the ePortfolio later will pretty much look the same as this form, but it's just that people will have to complete it on via actual ePortfolio accounts and then submit it to their training program director for approval. So this is how the CCT form looks like. And now the key sections on the completion of the training, on the training form, are actually the ARCP dates and outcomes. So you will need to outline on the CCT form each date when your ARCP took place and what was the actual outcome of that ARCP. Then the following section is Masters in Public Health. So what you will need to put in this section is if the time spent on Masters whilst you are in training, the total period, so the dates from to, and the total number of months that you spend on Masters whilst in training. Some registrars, as you know, might have completed Masters prior to starting their training. So what they would need to put in this section is just not applicable MPH completed prior to training. Or sometimes what happens as well is that some registrars spend some time on Masters and during the same period, they also spend some time in service. So just make sure that, the time spent on Masters, you put in that section. And then when you complete the placement section, later I will come to placement section, then you put the time in service there so that we can actually clearly see, how much time you spent in Masters whilst also spending some time in service. Then the following section after that is a section on placements. What you will need to list here is all your placements, so the name of the placement, then the dates from to, also whether you were full-time or part-time. If you were part-time, then you would need to put percentage here, and then the total number of months that you spend in that placement that were counted towards training. And also in this section, you complete any out of program for training that was counted towards your training that you had approved for training. So, and then the last section that you would need to complete on the CCT form is the section out of program. In this section, you will list any out of program that was not counted towards your training. For example, that would be out of program experience, or out of program for career break, or any out of program for research that wasn't counted towards training, any parental leave, maternity leave, or any other absence that was not counted towards training. When you complete that, you submit it to your TPD or your head of school for signing off, and they will complete the final section of the form, confirming that you satisfactorily completed all supervised training in posts approved by the GMC, that you also, they will put there how many months you spent in your health protection training and your CCT date. And then you send us that completed CCT form once that has been signed by your TPD, together with the signed copies of all your ARCP forms. So well, I mentioned earlier that we've seen incomplete forms over the years, and those incomplete forms, whether that's the ARCP forms or the CCT forms, they can result in delays to CCT approvals. And I've listed some of the examples here below. For example, especially in the previous ARCP forms, we see that there were some incomplete placement details. For example, they put the period covered, they put the name of the placement, but there is, if you were, for example, part-time in that placement, they did not put percentage there. They just put PT. So we would not know because we can't guess, so how much time you spend in that placement. So that would be considered as incomplete. Or incomplete, for example, sometimes they don't put masters in some of those time spent on masters in ARCP forms. Or details, there is, for example, the ARCP forms, very often the previous ARCP forms do not cover the whole period of training. For example, there is a month or 2 months of a gap in between. Or what happens is that sometimes the entire ARCP forms are missing for certain periods. We've seen also like 2 or 3 years where people did not, the ARCP forms, they just went missing. So what we have done here to try and overcome this and try not to delay this process, and try and get everybody included onto a register as soon as possible and start a consultant post as soon as possible, we talked to heads of school and TPDs, and we agreed that what you can do in case of, for example, missing ARCP forms, is that the TPD can issue a confirmation letter stating that the ARCP form is missing, and then in that with the date of that actual ARCP, the outcome, and the period that ARCP would cover, as well as percentage, and then we can accept that in case that there are missing ARCP forms. Also, if there are loads of discrepancies or missing information in the ARCP, in the previous ARCP forms, what we have agreed is that we will accept the final ARCP form with all details, all placement details outlined for the duration of the of training, and that form will supersede all previous forms. So, for example, if you are checking your ARCP forms and you see that there is missing information and you see that there are discrepancies, please note them. And when you come to your final ARCP, you can actually notify the panel and you can ask for all placement details to be outlined on your final ARCP for the entire duration of training, and then we will accept that. So that will actually shorten the length of the entire CCT process, because it will save us time not having to go back and forth to try and clarify that. Also make sure that all ARCP forms are, even including your previous ARCP forms, that they all signed. When I say signed, that means that the forms are signed by you and also by the chair of the ARCP panel. And also, if there is any outcome 3, if you have been issued with any outcome 3 that is relevant, they will just need to clarify, how long the extension of training then took place after that. And finally, I come to a period of grace, because that would be relevant to some registrars post CCT. A grace period is allowed for up to 6 calendar months, and this is the time that normally allows registrars to find their consultant post. Registrars can not officially act up during the grace period, as that would be then a locum post, but which should be fully resourced by the prospective employers, and then registrars would need to resign from the training program. If working through a grace period, then registrars should be enabled to take on senior level responsibilities to ensure that they are very well positioned for applying for their career posts later. Study leave expenses are not paid during the grace period, but continuing CPD would still be registrar's responsibility. And the Gold Guide and the local postgraduate dean are actually the sources of information for constraints around remaining in a training post after the award of CCT. If you are successful in finding a permanent or a locum post, then you will need to resign from the training program, and then you will be paid by the prospective employer, so you can't return to a training program after that. So what I would recommend, if you're considering using your grace period after your CCT, then please do talk to your training program director to ensure that you fully understand the options. There's also more on grace period in the transition to consultant guide that was created by SRC a few years ago, and that is also on our website in the completion of training section of our website. So, and finally, I've put here my contact email address. You should please feel free to contact me if you have any questions in relation to CCT. I'm more than happy to answer them. And I've also put here useful links for you to completion of training form, as well as to the entire completion of training section of the website, where you can find most of the information about the CCT process. So now I'm happy to take any questions that you guys might have. Okay, Victoria?
Yeah, just a question relating to people who have actually brought their CCT date forward. Because obviously you won't see the full amount of time in training for those people. Is there any specific evidence you need around that from them?
We do. Yes. So I'm glad, thank you very much for that question. So yes, there is a process that the deaneries should follow, and that should be agreed by the postgraduate dean. That the CCT data has been brought forward, and then we will just need a confirmation letter, from the TPD or from the training program advising that this has been agreed by the postgraduate dean, and this for how many months the CCT data has been brought forward. But it needs to be agreed in advance. So, okay, Amy.
Sorry, just to double check on timeframes then. So when we've had our final ARCP, as soon as they get back to us with our paperwork, we then proactively get in touch. It would go through a system, but if we want it to be sped up, we proactively send it across to you with all the paperwork. Is that right?
I would say to you, so it really varies, throughout the program. Some programs send it to us really, straight away, but I would suggest, as I said, it really doesn't matter whether it to us, whether it comes from you or it comes from the training program. I would say if you do have it, you have it all ready and all signed off, you're more than welcome to send it to us directly.
Okay, fab. Thank you.
Okay, Flos? Next.
Thanks. I was just wondering, the 6 months before CCT in which you're eligible to apply.
Sorry, I can't hear you very well.
Oh,
Sorry.
Is that better?
Yes, that's better.
Sorry, just had
Thank
to
you.
fiddle with my
No, that's
settings, sorry
fine.
about
Thank you.
I was just wondering, the 6 months before CCT that you're eligible to apply for a post, is that 6 calendar months or working time equivalent?
6 calendar months.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions at all? Matt.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mariana. Do you have any information about what the online process is going to look like that will be replacing the paper-based process?
So what will be the CCT form, as far as I'm aware, the CCT form will look exactly the same as the paper-based CCT form. And then what will happen is that you will just submit it via your e-portfolio. There will be a button, once you completed it, you will submit it to your TPD via your e-portfolio. You just click on submit and it goes to your TPD. And once the TPD completes it, then it will come to us. And then I think the training programs will also complete the ARCP forms on the e-portfolio, so we will be able to actually view the ARCP forms on your e-portfolio account. So that is as far as I know, but obviously it's not laid out yet, so I don't know the ins and outs of the process, but it will be very similar to paper-based process, but obviously much quicker because all the information will be already there. And then obviously, I think that when you are completing your placements on your e-portfolio now, so it should all feed into CCT form directly. So that should be a lot quicker, I guess, for registrars, to complete.
Okay, sounds good. I suppose there'll be some manual uploading of ARCP forms and things.
There definitely will be. And as I said, so as soon as the process is ready, for use, or even before that, once it's all tested and ready for use, then Garrett and I will hold the session for registrars, before they can even use it. But there will also be, as far as I'm aware, there will be also transition period. If some people might have not used the e-portfolio and they come to the end of their training, then they will still be able to use the paper-based version as well, so in the interim. So there will be this transition period, but I'm not sure how long that will take, so it's not been agreed yet.
That's great, thank you.
Any other questions? No? Amy, sorry again.
Sorry, just one more. So on the bit after it's all been confirmed that we've sent the right stuff and met the right things, and you send it across to the GMC, will we get a notification that that's been done so we know when to contact the GMC? Or
yes,
is it?
That is
okay.
Yeah, what happens is that after I reviewed your CCT paperwork and I'm happy that everything is fine, then it goes to the faculty director of training for final sign off and approval. And once the faculty director of training signs it off, the recommendation is then submitted to GMC or UKPHR. And then as soon as the recommendation has been submitted to UKPHR or GMC, we also send you a confirmation letter advising you that we have notified the GMC now, and the GMC will then then ask you, if you haven't submitted your application, then they will ask you to submit it, or if you have already submitted it when we notify them of your CCT date, then you will get automatically included onto their register.
Thank you.
But we definitely notify registrars once the recommendation has gone to GMC and UKPHR. And in that confirmation letter for registrars from non-medical background, there will be a link for you to apply to UKPHR to get included onto their specialist register. Annie?
So you can put your application in to be on the register before the paperwork from you goes to the...
You mean for GMC?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I mentioned earlier is that, you know, when I explained the process at the beginning, is that it varies for registrars for medical background, is that we have to send the advanced notification to the GMC. And what happens then, once we notify them of your approaching CCT date, they will invite you to apply for your CCT. And then if you apply prior to your CCT date, they will store the application in their system until they actually receive the recommendation from us. So I always recommend to people to apply as soon as they get the invitation. You're obviously not obliged, you don't have to, but you will still have time. But even if you haven't applied, once we made a recommendation and we send you the confirmation letter, we will state in our letter that if you have not already applied for your CCT, then please do apply now to the GMC to get included onto their register. Any more questions? No? Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. So, Matt, I will share the recording of the session with you, and then I guess presentation slides as well. Once Jessica sends it over to me, then you can share it with your other colleagues who were unable to attend today. And we will be in touch with regards to sessions once is all on the e-portfolio for further sessions for registrars. Thank you all very much, you know, for your time today. And then if you do have any further questions when you come to closer to your CCT date, please do not hesitate to contact me. Or if we need to go over the process again, you know, I'm happy to do that for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks
Have
so
a lovely
much.
day, everybody. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.